प्रभु तव मूर्ति विनोदकारी, पलपन विसरे नहीं जो विसारी। जुगल चरण सोल चिन्ह जेह, नजर समीपे रहो हमारी येह। श्री हरि कृष्ण महाराज जय, घनश्याम महाराज जय, स्वामीनारायण भगवान जय। Almighty and Supreme Lord Swaminarayan, the path maker to our liberation, Pujapad Guruji, and all of you devotees who are viewing this lecture, my humble Jai Swaminarayan. The Vachnamrut is defined as the form of God, the form of Supreme Lord Swaminarayan. How so, you can say? Because it's authentic and it is the words which are spoken by God Himself. The Vachnamrut gives us so much in life and teaches us many lessons that helps us tread the path of liberation in a fast and easy way. Now, what makes the Vachnamrut so authentic? First and foremost, it is the words of Bhagwan Swaminarayan himself. When Bhagwan came on this earth 230 years ago, he narrated many spiritual talks in front of his disciples, his saints and devotees. And through that, 4 prominent and eminent saints, Sadguru Muktanand Swami, Sadguru Gopanand Swami, Sadguru Nityanand Swami, and Sadguru Shukanand Swami. These 4 saints compiled these talks, and after compilation and after proofing and checking, it was made into the Vachnamrut. The Vachnamrut is verified by Bhagwan himself as well. So it makes it very authentic and very genuine. Second, by reading such words spoken by God Himself, one can really understand what Bhagwan is trying to make us like. Meaning, if one has a guide, if someone wants to go to the United Kingdom from New York, and one wants to go via a ship, then one will need a guide. One will need a person, a captain, who can steer the ship in the right direction, or else we'll end up in a different continent. In the same way, the Vachnamrut is a guide for all of us and how Bhagwan wants us to be like, and how we should develop our life so that we can also reach the divine abode of Akshardham. That's why Bhagwan has given us this Vachnamrut. And finally, the third reason why the Vachnamrut is very authentic is because Bhagwan himself spoke it, but even more than that, the supreme principles that lie inside this Vachnamrut are like no other religion. Why? Because in Hinduism, ancient scriptures such as the Vedas, the Purans, the Itihas, when one compiles all these scriptures and extracts their most valuable, you can say nectar, or most valuable information, it would be all composed in the Vachnamrut. So we can say the Vachnamrut is the nectar of all the scriptures. So these are the 3 things that makes the Vachnamrut very authentic. Now getting into our topic, now from on, we want to start overviewing, analyzing, and understanding a couple of these Vachnamruts that Bhagwan himself has spoke to us about. Today, I want to analyze and help you understand the Vachnamrut, Gadhada, first chapter, 6th Vachnamrut. The title of this Vachnamrut is called One with Wisdom and One Without Wisdom. Now let's just take a glance at that word wisdom. Now wisdom is such a word that when someone hears that word, the first thing that comes to mind is wisdom is such a word that is connected with older people, elder people, people who have understanding and who are elder. Right away in our mind, that comes up. When wisdom is used, we think of elder people who have much understanding and experience. Now, the title is called One with Wisdom and One Without Wisdom. But Bhagwan is trying to give this title a different meaning. Now, how I want you to view it is that suppose there's a new devotee entering this religion, this satsang fellowship, the Swaminarayan movement, and he doesn't know much about this fellowship. But even after he reads this Vachnamrut and imbibes and follows what Bhagwan is trying to say in this particular Vachnamrut, he can also be known as a person who has wisdom. Even if he is new, even if he's young, even if he has no other knowledge. Why? Because Bhagwan himself has said and has established that these are the characteristics of a person who is wise, and these are characteristics of a person who is unwise. So even if you are a newcomer in this religion, but if you follow, if you imbibe, if you make your life into such, how Bhagwan will say, and we'll read over, then you will be also considered a person with wisdom, even if you are not old, or even if you don't have much experience. The word wisdom is experienced knowledge. A person who has experienced many incidents in life and who has knowledge as well. Such is a person who has wisdom. So now what I'm going to do is first I'm going to read the whole Vachnamrut, and then we're going to analyze each and every part and understand from there. Swaminarayan Hare, Swaminarayan Hare. On Magshir Shuddhi 9th, Samvat 1876, American date November 25th, 1819, Shreeji Maharaj was sitting in Dada Kachar's darbar in Gadhada. He was dressed entirely in white clothes. At that time, an assembly of munis as well as devotees from various places had gathered before him. Thereupon, Shree Maharaj said, "In this satsang fellowship, a person who is wise increasingly finds flaws within himself and perceives virtues in God and his devotees. Moreover, when God and his saints utter harsh words of advice for his own benefit, he accepts them as beneficial and he is not hurt by them. Such a person steadily attains greatness in satsang. On the other hand, as a person who lacks wisdom practices satsang and listens to discourses in satsang, he continually perceives virtues within himself. Moreover, when God and his saints highlight his flaws and advise him, he misinterprets such advice due to his arrogance. On the contrary, he perceives flaws in God and his saints. Such a person steadily declines and loses his reputation in satsang. Therefore, if a person renounces the vanity of his own virtues, becomes brave, and keeps faith in God and his saints, then his ignorance is eradicated and he attains greatness in satsang." This is the end of Vachnamrut, Gadhada, first chapter, 6th Vachnamrut. Now, as you probably heard, Bhagwan is talking about perceiving virtues versus perceiving flaws. But before we get into that, the first paragraph, you may be wondering, we just read over what the date was, where Bhagwan was seated, what he was wearing, and who was seated in front of him. Now, in Gujarati, this is called the Partharo. And what this is each and every Vachnamrut has this. There's 262 Vachnamruts, and out of them, each and every Vachnamrut has this Partharo. What this is signifying is it's giving us the date, it's giving us who was seated in front of Bhagwan, what Bhagwan was wearing. But more importantly, the reason why Nansantos, the reason why these saints have compiled and put this detail into each and every Vachnamrut is because when we read this, what we should do is we should imagine in our mind, we should actually practically think that we are seated in front of Bhagwan himself. Bhagwan is wearing such kinds of clothes, and he is speaking to me, and I am not seated here in this country or in this very area, but I am seated in Dada Khacher's Darbar, and Bhagwan is in front of me, and saints and devotees are also beside me, and I am also listening to the talks of Bhagwan. When one practically views in this kind of way, then one really can grasp the concept of Bhagwan, and one really feels that Bhagwan is actually speaking to me. These are Bhagwan's words, obviously, so Bhagwan is giving you a message. But when you put yourself into that very place, it makes it different. For example, if someone shows you a bowl of ice cream and says that this is very tasty, it's very sweet, and it tastes really good, you're not going to taste it in your mouth. You're just listening to the words. But if someone gives you that bowl of ice cream and you start to eat that ice cream, then you'll feel, oh yes, it is tasty. It's very cold, but it's very good. It tastes nice. Why? Because you're practically intaking that. In the same way, when one is reading or when one is listening to such kinds of scenarios where Bhagwan is seated here, Bhagwan is wearing this, devotees, saints are gathered here, when one practically imagines oneself inside that scenario, then one really starts to experience the whole environment. And through that, one really grasps the details and the principles that Bhagwan is trying to implement into us. So now we're going to get into the heart of the Vachnamrut, the information that Bhagwan is trying to show us and trying to give us. Thereupon, Shree Maharaj said, in this satsang fellowship, a person who is wise increasingly finds flaws within himself and perceives virtues in God and his devotees. First and foremost, the first characteristic of a wise person, of a person of wisdom, according to Shree Maharaj, is a person who perceives flaws within oneself. Now, in this age, we feel that we don't have any flaws inside of us. We feel that we're correct and everyone else is wrong or inferior. But that is our misunderstanding. What we must understand is we should not look at other people's flaws. By doing this, one falls back and one does not experience the bliss that one is supposed to after joining this movement. But if one starts to perceive one's flaws within oneself, such as I have this bad nature of speaking rudely, or I have such a bad nature where I don't respect many people, then one will feel guilty But through that guilt, when one identifies one's flaws, one can eradicate them. Why? Because one feels that if Bhagwan doesn't like these flaws, then I shouldn't have them inside of me. Now, there's a couple ways and there's a couple locations that one should view or perceive flaws within oneself. First and foremost, when we're looking externally, there's a lot of flaws in this body that we have. You can say, how? Well, our body language is such a thing that it is said in science that 70% of our body language, from our body language, a person can really tell how that person is, how you are, how you behave, how you go about your life. 70%, even without one oral word. And the other 30% is after speaking to you, one can identify more about oneself. So 70% body language, 30% oral. Through this, we can learn that our body language, our body orientation, the way how we perceive or look or even show our facial expressions is a very important thing, not only in society, but in the spiritual world as well. When we go to temple or when we go to some kind of spiritual event, we should not show any kind of body actions which may harm others or which may disrespect any elder people or anyone. And even more harmful is our oral language. Words are such that it's said that sticks and stones can break one's bones, but words can never hurt me. But words can hurt a person if they're said in the right location. From this, we should learn that we should control our speech in such a way that it'll be beneficial to others. Now, the first location I went over is the body. Now, let's go a little deeper inside. The second location where we should perceive flaws is our mind. Now, this is a very hard concept to grasp, but when one grabs this concept, then one can really progress in satsang, and we'll read further on. Now, the mind has many flaws. Why? When you see someone and one doesn't like what that person is doing, right away, your mind says, oh, this person, this is not good about him, and this is bad, and he's doing this bad, and he's a bad person, anything like that. Negative thoughts come to that person's mind about that person. This is a flaw inside of one's mind. One should identify and one should eradicate. Now, what a person does who is wise is he finds flaws within himself and perceives virtues in God and his saints. Looking at God and his saints in a good manner, in a good fashion. For example, sometimes when one goes to the movies, there's those 3D movies where they have those 3D goggles you have to wear in order to view the movie. Now, if you don't use the 3D goggles, you're not going to be able to enjoy the movie because the whole movie's in 3D. So they give you those movie glasses and you wear them, and then when you sit and watch the movie, the whole movie you can see in 3D. Or if you go to an amusement park and they give you those yellow colored glasses or green colored glasses, what do you see? You see the color yellow everywhere. Even if something is white, you'll see it in yellow. Even if something is blue, you'll see it in yellow. Or green, whatever the color is, you'll see it in. In the same way, that was an example, but the principle behind it is that in the same way, however we perceive, however our vision is towards everything, towards other people, that's what we'll see. If we have a negative vision of seeing only bad things in other people, then we will also be filled with bad things. But that's all we'll see. Even if a person has 100 good qualities, but we'll only see the bad qualities inside of that person. On the other hand, if a person can perceive good virtues, then even if he is the most sinful person, even if he has done the most worst thing one can imagine, one can still find some kind of virtue inside that person, because one is viewing such a person with such a vision. That's why. The greats had a vision of viewing only positives, such as Sadguru Muktanand Swami, Bhaktaraj Dada Kachar, even in the modern age, Mahatma Gandhi, Abraham Lincoln, Martin Luther King, all these icons, they viewed in such a positive manner. Due to that, their whole life was an example for others. Due to that, they were all role models, and they are still role models, and they will still be role models for the future because of their character that they established on this earth when they were only here for a short period of time. So, character is very important, and more than that, however you vision other people is very important. Continuing on, moreover, when God and his saint utter harsh words of advice for his own benefit, he accepts them as beneficial, and he is not hurt by them. Such a person steadily attains greatness in satsang. Now, when saints say something harsh or give advice in such a way, he does not take it in a negative manner. He accepts it as his fault. Through that, his fault becomes his virtue. Why? Because he changes his way of doing that particular thing or behaving in that particular manner. And due to that, Bhagwan said, one attains greatness. Now, I'm reminded of a small story of Sadguru Brahmanand Swami. In the time of Shriji Maharaj, about 200 years ago, Sadguru Brahmanand Swami and a group of his Sant Mandal, meaning his saints, were traveling to the village Vartal. Now, they came across a certain region, and they were crossing a farm, and they had fasted for 2 whole days. They had not any water or any food to drink or eat. The reason for that was at that time, Bhagwan time, it was very hard to get food even for saints because they had niyams, vows of begging for food, and at certain times they did not come across any villages. That's why for 2 days, Brahmanand Swami and his saints did not have anything to eat or drink. So they were very hungry and very thirsty. So as they were crossing that farm, they saw a small boy who was farming. And that small boy saw that saints were coming. He had no knowledge of who these saints were or what, they had not eaten for 2 days. But out of courtesy, out of good manner, small boy asked, "Swami, would you like some grains?" Swami and his saints were obviously hungry and they had not eaten. So Swami accepted the offering, and Swami ate and all those saints ate. And then Swami became pleased on the boy because he offered grains from ahead. So what Swami asked the boy was that the manifest form, the Supreme Lord himself, has came on this earth. And his name is Swaminarayan. Chant this name, Swaminarayan, throughout your life. And at the end of your life, Bhagwan will come and take you to his divine abode, Akshardham. The boy was a little illiterate, so he said to Swami that this Swaminarayan name is too long for me to remember, Swami. Could you give me another option? Seeing his humble nature, Swami had a little weight on him, meaning his body was a little big, and he had a belly. So Swami said, "Do you see my belly?" The boy said, "Yes." "Remember my belly throughout your life, and at the end of your life, I will come with Bhagwan to take you to his abode, Akshardham." So, the boy, looking at the positive, not seeing that this is a fat Swami or this is a person with a big belly, and by remembering such a belly, what will I gain? No. Just because Swami said, without any question, he accepted and he remembered Swami's belly throughout his life. And at the end of his life, Bhagwan and Swami came and took him to his divine abode, Akshardham. The principle, the moral behind this story is that the boy perceived the good qualities in Pujya Swami, and through that he attained greatness in this satsang and in the life beyond. Now, seeing this example, we can see that even from a small feature of remembering Pujya Swami's belly, if one can go to Akshardham, then imagine we have contact with saints, and if we can perceive good virtues inside of such a saint, then what is our liberation? It's already done as well. So, perceiving virtues in saints and devotees is a very great thing to have. Moving on, Shree Maharaj says, on the other hand, as a person who lacks wisdom practices satsang and listens to discourses in satsang, he continually perceives virtues within himself. Now, even a person who lacks wisdom, even a person who is not wise, he also practices satsang. He also listens to the discourses in satsang, meaning katha. But what he is doing is he is viewing his own virtues. He is thinking that, look at me, I'm such a devotee where I am listening to katha, I am doing the devotion of God, I am a great devotee. By this thinking, he is only thinking about his good natures. Through this, such a person develops ego. And when this happens, one views oneself as superior to others, and one views others as inferior to that person. Now, this is a major flaw. And Bhagwan continues and says that, moreover, when God and his saint highlight his flaws and advise him, he misinterprets such advice due to his arrogance. Now, for the first person who was wise, when God and his saints uttered harsh words, he accepted them and he took the virtues. On the other hand, such a person who is not wise, when he is given or advice or harsh words are said to him, he takes the flaws of the saints, that these saints are wrong, I am right. This is all because of his arrogance, his ego that he has developed. On the contrary, he perceives flaws in God and his saint. Such a person steadily declines and loses his reputation in satsang. Now, such a person who views saints in a bad way, devotees in a bad way, really loses his reputation and falls in this satsang. Now, after studying the Vachnamrut in detail, out of all 262 Vachnamruts, most of the Vachnamruts highlight the point where one should perceive virtues in others and not faults in others. The reason for that is the main reason why one falls from this satsang fellowship is because one perceives flaws in others. In Vachnamrut, Loya 5th chapter, Shree Maharaj says that to develop a firm foundation, one can imbibe the virtues of a devotee. And to develop a weak foundation, if one perceives flaws in others, one's foundation will be weak. So if one wants to test how strong one's foundation is, or how weak one's foundation is, then just check your mind. Are you imbibing the virtues, or are you taking the flaws of others? And this is a simple measurement of how one can really tell how strong one is in this satsang. Nevertheless, Swami says that recognize and shun bad company within oneself. Bad company external to satsang and bad company within satsang. Well, bad company within oneself are bad thoughts that arise in the mind, and external is bad company, meaning evil people, people that don't believe in God, people that accuse God of bad things, anything like that. This is bad company. Now, what I want you to remember from this is that there's 3 types of kusang, or evil company. One is internal, second is external, and third is kusang inside this religion, or evil company even inside this religion. Internal kusang, or internal bad company, is our vicious natures, such as lust, anger, greed, jealousy. These are all internal kusangis that we must fight against in order to attain God. External is bad company, outside people who try to take us away from God, or people who peer pressure us in school to drink alcohol or do drugs or smoke or any other kind of illegal or bad habits that Bhagwan has not permitted. And third and finally, kusang inside this fellowship, meaning even after entering this religion, there's people who don't talk in the right form about saints and devotees, and one should especially stay away from them. Why? Because due to that, one really strays away from the path of liberation, and one does not experience the bliss of God and himself and the satsang itself. So finally, Shree Maharaj says, therefore, if a person renounces the vanity, meaning vanity is ego, of his own virtues, and becomes brave and keeps faith in God and his saint, then his ignorance is eradicated and he attains greatness. When one completely let go of one's ego about one's virtues and perceives the good virtues of saints and devotees, then one again will attain greatness in satsang. So from this Vachnamrut and this particular lecture, the main point that one must understand is to perceive good qualities in God, saints, and devotees, and to perceive bad qualities or virtues or habits that Bhagwan does not like inside of oneself. When one does this, when one executes this form, this formula, then one will have a reaction of attaining greatness in this satsang. So please imbibe the words of Shree Maharaj himself and attain happiness and bliss beyond one's belief. Jai Swaminarayan. Shripatim Shridaram Sarvadeveshwaram Bhaktidharmatmanam Vasudevam Hare Madhavam Kesavam Kamadam Karanam Si Swaminarayanam Neelakantham Bhaje. Hari Krishna Maharajani Jai.